Marie Ora from howdoyousaythatword.com here, and we're going to talk about champagne names. This is going to be a general roundup of the more popular and the more difficult to pronounce names, and in later episodes I will go into each name in detail with the pronunciations of all the variations available, so watch out for that. Pronouncing champagne names can be tricky even if you know a fair bit of French, and the reason for that is many of the names originate from other languages, German and Dutch in particular, so their pronunciation includes a nod to the origin of the name. Let's start with a fairly easy champagne name which is completely French in origin. It's Dom Perignon. Whenever you see an OM or an ON in French, it's a nasalized vowel. So you say on. You don't say dom, you say don. But if you do want to anglicize it to dom, that's fine. No problem with that. What you can't do is say Perignon, because that is so wrong that you might as well just slap a sign on your forehead that says Philistine. If you can say lasagna, you can say Dom Perignon. The GN, that N sound, you find it in both Italian and French, and it always applies. That's why I say use a reference that you know, which is lasagna. One more time, Dom Perignon, or if you want to say it in a more English way, Dom Perignon. The next champagne is German in origin. It's originally a German surname. William Deutz was a Prussian who founded the champagne house together with his business partner Pierre Hubert Gelderman. They have taken the Gelderman off the name and now it's just Deutz. In German, you would say Deutz, but we are talking about champagne, which can only be made in the Champagne region of France. So you follow the French pronunciation and you say Deutz. What's tricky about this sound is that in English it is only ever made with a vowel followed by an R. Think about words like purr, stir, girl, and dirt. And that's why I use a symbol to represent it. It's easier to pick up on for received English speakers than for American English speakers. The easiest way to get the pronunciation 100% correct is to use the word dirt like soil, but of course if you're American take out that R sound and add a Z to it, Deutz. The next one in a similar vein is Veuve Clicquot. Veuve means widow in French, so Veuve Clicquot is the widow Clicquot. The EU in Veuve is pronounced exactly like the EU in Deutz. Americans tend to say Veuve, which is a big no. You say Veuve. Again, it's Veuve Clicquot, and if you want the full name, it's Veuve Clicquot Ponsardin. You've got two nasalized vowels in Ponsardin, the ON and the IN at the end. The best way to deal with the IN at the end is to think of the man's name Dan, short for Daniel, so you just say Dan and then you nasalize the N, Dan, Ponsardin. One more time, Veuve Clicquot Ponsardin. Or in English, Veuve Clicquot Ponsardin. Next we have Moët Chandon. You say Moët because the name is Dutch in origin. You often have people arguing about whether or not the T is silent. Normally in French it would be, but because this is a Dutch name, it isn't. There are many people who seem to think that the reason the T is pronounced has something to do with the French liaison, which is the grammar practice of sounding a final consonant, which is normally silent, when it's followed by a vowel. So here we're talking about the T and the E. But that's completely incorrect because you're not allowed to make a liaison with "et", which means "and" in French. This is one of the liaisons interdites in French grammar. It means forbidden liaison, so that is not the reason at all. The reason is because the name is Dutch. There are two dots on the E which look like an umlaut. They are in fact a diacrit known as diaeresis, as my lecturers used to say them, or you can also pronounce it diaeresis. And they are there to ensure that the reader knows the two adjacent vowels are pronounced separately as two syllables and not one sound. They used to be far more popular in English, but now it's fading away. They were commonly part of the spelling of English words such as naive, cooperate, Noel. In fact, with Noel, you still see the diaeresis or diaeresis if you prefer being used. Without the diaeresis or diaeresis if you prefer, it would be Noel and not Noel. It's exactly the same for Moët. In Chandon, we have two nasalized vowels, the AN and the ON. This is very easy for English speakers. Next, we have Heidsieck. The champagne house is named after one Herr Heidsieck, who was born in Westphalia, which is a German region, so again we are dealing with a German name. In German you say Heidsieck, but you don't want to say that for the champagne name. You pronounce it Heidsieck as they do in France. Very easy, it's intimidating to look at, but once you know how to pronounce it, it's dead easy to get right. There are 3 brands of Heidsieck champagne. One is Pipet Heidsieck. Pipet is definitely not pronounced like the English word piper. You say Pipet as the French do. So one more time, Pipet Heidsieck. There is also a Charles Heidsieck, and then there is an Heidsieck Monopole. Remember, there is no stress in French, so keep the stress evenly on each syllable in monopole. One more time, Heidsieck Monopole. Next we have Pol Roger, a really great champagne. Don't say Roger like the man's name Roger. It's Pol Roger, or to dial it down to English, Pol Roger. Really easy, one more time, Pol Roger. The next champagne is Ruinart. Not Ruinart, which is what the granny did to the painting in Spain. It's Ruinart. This is actually easier for American English speakers to pronounce because you have the rolling R. So it's easier to say Ruinart than to say it in received English, where it would be Ruinart, but you can get it with practice. One more time, Ruinart or Ruinart. Finally, let's look at Taittinger. There is a snobby English sector which willfully and deliberately mispronounces it as Taittinger because they think they are above French pronunciation. They are not. What they are is wrong. You don't say Taittinger, you say Taittinger. The IN is another nasalized vowel. Say the syllable like the word tan and then nasalize the N. Tan. One more time, Taittinger. Taittinger. It's quite easy to say in English as well. Taittinger. I've got a link to an article, 10 Things You Must Know About Champagne, and you can hear all these names pronounced by a real French person by following the links on the article. Subscribe to my channel for pronunciation help, and let me know if you have any queries.